Happy Sunday, everybody. I'm Jason Colthorpe, and here comes Flashpoint. Attorney General Dana Nessel is here. Can she stop AI data centers? Dewey Steffen also in the House talking about the best things to do with your money right now to set you up for next year. And how about an exit interview with Mayor Mike Duggan? Yes, let's get rolling right now on Flashpoint. In a few minutes, we're going to hear from Mayor Mike Duggan, who is leaving after 12 years in office running Detroit, and he has a lot to celebrate as he hands the reins to Mary Sheffield. We'll also get some money tips that could be useful this time of year, but let's start with the Attorney General Dana Nessel. She's making waves as these AI data centers are rolling into Michigan, and she's also drawn the ire of Lansing lawmakers. Let's dive into it right now on Flashpoint. Let's welcome back to the program Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. Great to have you as always. Last week on this program, we updated the rise in data centers, which is nothing new to Michigan. I believe the number is 57 around the state is what we have. But there's this recent surge of large AI data centers, and now you're getting involved as these proposals are coming to communities. What has caught your attention about these?
Well, the thing that's most concerning to me is really the fact that we don't know, based on a lot of these contracts, what that's going to mean for ratepayers. And we already have some of the worst service by the utilities anywhere in the country and the highest rates. And we want to make sure that in the end, it's not consumers that are ending up holding the bag for what will be this massive surge in energy needs. I
want to get into the legal challenge you have on that too, but you mentioned the rate changes, and I know consumers at DTE have told me that there will be no rate increases, that these centers have to incur all and any costs when it comes to the building, the electricity that's needed later, or the rates that hit other ratepayers. You're not buying that or not taking them at their word? Or
Well, Jason, if I had a penny for every time that I've heard consumers, energy, or DTE tell me my rates weren't going to rise, but then they did, then maybe I could actually afford to pay my utility rates. I mean, this has been a constant. I've been in office for 7 years now. I have statutory authority to intervene in these ratepayer cases. And time and again, we find out what the utilities tell us ends up not being true, but we only know that because we have what's called a contested, case, which is really like a trial in which the utilities have to prove to the Michigan Public Service Commission that acts as sort of the judge. Mm-hmm. It's a three-person panel. All of them have been appointed by the governor in staggered terms. And it is up to them to make the decision, but it's only after we have a hearing, we have witnesses, we have expert testimony, we can cross-examine those witnesses, and only then can we really know that our rates aren't going to rise. And in the instance of this Selene project, DTE is telling us that our rates aren't going to go up, but this is enough energy to power a city of 1 million people. Yeah. That is so much.
I believe it's the cumulative of the Tri-County area.
That's right. And here they're trying to rush this through without having a contested hearing. And then the contracts that they've submitted are so redacted, we don't even know what they're saying. So how can we possibly know that this isn't going to cause our rates to rise exponentially as they have done in cities and in states all around the country with similar projects?
And you have an example of the redactions, and I know DTE has addressed this, saying the only parts of the contracts that are redacted are the terms that are commercially sensitive or contain confidential customer information. Is that not what is redacted here?
That is a blatant lie. And you can see right from the this copy of the contract we have here, do you know that they won't even show us who signed the contract? How can we know if the people who signed are properly authorized to speak on behalf of the company or on behalf of the AI center if we don't even know who signed it? We don't know many of the terms. We don't know information about the exit fees if they terminate this early. We don't even have, look at all these headers, portions of the contract that they won't even tell us what that is about, let alone what information is in there, customer credits. It's all redacted. And then you have the application terms for the Public Service Commission. Almost all of that is redacted. Yeah. So it's just a flat-out lie to say, oh, it's only this proprietary information. It's all kinds of critical information that the public deserves to know about.
As for the rushing it through and having the full hearings, and this is something I guess I didn't know, but the response from DTE was Michigan's regulatory process allows a company to file for ex parte approval of contracts if there's no cost of service increase to customers. Now, I know you just said you don't buy that there won't be a cost to customers, but if that's true, are they allowed to do this without the normal process?
There are specific instances where they are allowed to do it, but never in a project of this magnitude. And then we just have to rely on DTE telling us, don't worry, trust us, there's not going to be any increase in rates. But we have no way of knowing that. And the only way we would know it is by having this contested hearing. This project has apparently been in the works for months and months. They could have brought us in on this a long time ago. And again, we're only asking for an abbreviated hearing. We could do this in a couple months. Had they allowed us to have this hearing when they first introduced this contract on October 31st, we could have been most of the way through the process now. But the only reason why they won't have this hearing is because they don't want the public to know, and they certainly don't want us to know.
We've had, like I said, we have other data centers within the state, and Michigan, I think, lags behind other Great Lakes states when it comes to the major ones. Do you believe that these aren't able to be held by the grid? I know the utilities think their grid is fine to have these major data centers. Engineers have said there's plenty of space for them. Is that a concern on your end?
Well, even in the case of this one project, they're telling us that they have to make at least, minimally, a $500 million investment in a new power center and new transmission lines. And my question is, who is going to pay for that?
And they say the AI data center company will. But
yeah, we don't even know if if Oracle or OpenAI, we don't even know if they're going to still be in business a handful of years from now to pay for it. You know, we read and we hear about all these things about AI being, on the bubble. We know that these companies are highly leveraged. They're billions of dollars in debt. And many people are predicting they might not even be in business. So who's going to be left holding the bag if these companies are not still around in the years to come? It's going to be us. It's going to be the ratepayers of the state of Michigan. It could be economically catastrophic for this state.
If the bubble bursts, yeah. Last week, an engineer said, even if the bubble bursts, this is the technology that's going to be here. It's going to be useful. That was the engineer. But I wanted to ask you, are you against the major AI data centers coming to Michigan, or just where some of these are going?
Look, I'm not a policymaker, right? And the House and Senate and governor decided in 2024 that they wanted to provide incentives, tax incentives for these major data centers to come to Michigan. But if we're going to do it, let's do it right. Mm-hmm. And let's make sure that we've learned from the mistakes that were made in so many other states, and we don't repeat those mistakes here and now. And we have an opportunity to do that. It's just that, the data centers and DTE are asking us to sort of just skip through that entire process and just go right to the project, not really knowing what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah, we will certainly be following the legal challenge, that's for sure. I did want to get your reaction to something else that made news this week. The State House has some new bills aimed at limiting the power of the Attorney General. And one lawmaker had this quote, and I wanted to put it up for you to see. The rights that are granted to the Attorney General and the Attorney General's actions are created by the statutes that the legislature has put in place and that the governor signs into law. We don't want to create anybody that's a king, and the Attorney General certainly should not have the complete autonomy with regard to these things. That's Representative Jay DeBoyer, Republican from Clay. What was your reaction maybe to that statement and these bills that have been introduced?
Well, this is just political retribution against me because I filed so many cases against the federal government. These cases against the Trump administration, we were able to recover over $2 billion that was illegally withheld from the state of Michigan by the federal government. And, as is typical of, unfortunately, a lot of folks in the Republican Party right now, they will do anything to support this president, even when he has policies in place that are actively hurting people in the state of Michigan. And I'm not going to stand for that. I'm going to continue to file those lawsuits, and I'm going to continue to bring back the money that is owed to our state.
The last time we talked, you corrected me it was 28 at the time. Do you know how many it is now against this current administration?
We're at about 40.
About 40. How many times did you sue the Biden administration? Ever?
I can't recall an instance where I did that, but the thing is, we didn't have the Biden administration creating policies that were so harmful to our state, and they certainly weren't violating the law when they were furthering those policies.
Well, I should point out the Biden administration did lose a lot of cases regarding education. I think there was a COVID case. So they were found to not be legal in certain cases.
In some cases. But nothing like what we're seeing right now. And again, the cases that the Biden administration lost, a relief that they were trying to grant to student loan borrowers. I would have a hard time finding standing to bring an action like that, only because that would only be helpful to people in our state. But when you are trying to deny things like cancer research funding, funding to our museums and libraries, funding for emergency services here, FEMA funding, I mean, the list goes on and on. We've won so many of these cases because the courts have found time and time again that these policies are illegal and unconstitutional, and that they are harmful to the people of our state. And we did not have that during the Biden administration.
We will certainly keep in touch on the battle with the AI data centers and everything else, but always appreciate your time, Attorney General.
Thanks for having me.
Dana Nessel, Attorney General of the state of Michigan. We're right back with more Flashpoint after this. Back here on Flashpoint, and let's talk money, which we love to do at the end of the year oftentimes. And let's do that with Dewey Steffen, who is the CEO and Chief Investment Officer at Great Lakes Wealth. Good to have you on Flashpoint. You always make the rounds on every other show on Local 4, so I'm glad we finally got you here.
Well, thanks, and I appreciate the opportunity.
My pleasure. I really do like to get this advice at the end of the year, and Rod Maloney would be very, very happy that we're doing as he often did now that he's retired, though. Number one rule I know is you don't pay attention to the stock market. Let it go up and down, kind of forget about it. But when it comes to a 401k or an IRA, are there some things that people should do at the end of the year?
Absolutely. So end of the year planning is very important, and a 401k or 403b contribution is certainly part of it. So before we get into that, though, just make sure overall that you have, your orders of operations, you have everything else set for the year as well. So kind of go through it. But related to your retirement planning, 401ks, 403bs, you have maximum amounts you can put in before the end of the year. So let's go ahead and get that done.
Is that that's a change, correct? Like you have to actually go in and you can actually up it a little bit? Did that change, or is it just the end of the year?
Yeah, no, it's just the end of the year. So 12/31 is the end of the year for the contributions for your 401ks and 403bs for 2025.
Okay.
What's a little different is IRA contributions actually go until next April 15th. So you get from January 1st, and you don't have to rush to do that by the end of the year. So don't worry about the IRAs as much right now, but the 401ks, 403bs, you have a $23,500 maximum amount you can put in. If you're over 50, I unfortunately, or fortunately am, I suppose, in this conversation,
Yep.
You can add an additional $7,500. So you can put as much as $31,000 a year away.
That's what I was thinking. I knew there was something with us old folks that can...
Middle-aged. I like to say firmly middle-aged.
We've got a long way to go. And since we're talking about 401ks, is it still, since the market went crazy not too long ago, it goes up and down, we shouldn't freak out about that stuff, right? Just let the money be as it...
Yeah, the best thing with 401ks and 403bs when you do it over the year is that you're catching all the different moments. If there's a drop, Friday is payday, it's in. You had no control. If it's up, Friday is payday, you were in. But you're buying units because you buy dollar amounts, which do the math of the price. So when it's lower, you're actually buying more. When it's higher, you're buying less. And so evens out, and it's called dollar cost averaging.
Other things people should do this time of year. We have a couple weeks left before the end of the year. What other little financial things should folks do right now?
So number one is deal with debt. And this is ongoing, but before the end of the year. Mark Cuban is famous for saying, what's the easiest way to make 29.99% on your money? Pay off your 29.99% credit card.
Yeah.
So deal with debt, number one, see where you're at with that. Back to the 401ks and 403bs, if your company offers a match and you're not in at all, you better get your butts in before the end of the year, because that's free money. Many companies will do a match, $3,000 a year, $6,000 a year. So if you put in even $1,000, they'll match you with $1,000. So no matter what, get to at least the match maximum. That's free money. You don't want to waste that.
And also, if people plan on making a donation, you should do that now, because that leads up to tax time, correct?
Yes, so that's something that if you do an itemized tax return, absolutely talk with your tax professional about the itemized contributions and tax deductions for those donations. If you do just the standard return and standard deductions, it's not such an instrument to use from a financial planning perspective, but this is the holiday season. Give and give charitably.
Now, so many folks live paycheck to paycheck. Doesn't matter how much you make, but a lot of people, depending on that from week to week. What's the best way to start budgeting? And a lot of folks go, I know I'm over budget here or there. How do you start that process?
Yeah, and it's also like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? And so 50%, maybe more, of Americans are paid to paycheck to paycheck. So we want to recognize that. But that doesn't mean you're in trouble. It just means you're paycheck to paycheck. Right. So go ahead and add up your paychecks from either last year, this year, or more importantly for estimates for 2026. What will you take home? Not what you get on the top line. You're not trying to brag to your friends or to your spouse. You really want to know what you take home after your deductions and such. And just add that up for the year. Whatever it is per month, times it by 12.
Here's what we have.
And then on the other side, your debt side. So the expenses, those are your credit cards. Just get your bills and go through. And on the bottom line of that, that's just your total expenses and times that by 12, et cetera. So you have your total net income, your total net expenses, and you have to do the math to figure out if you're above water or below or right on. And then you take the paycheck number, and then you have to go see those expenses and put them in an order of paying them off. That's the budget. And you start with your needs, then your wants, then your wishes. So you need to pay your mortgage or your rent. You need to pay, your phone bill or your car payment, and then those other things in there. And so you have to cut somewhere sometimes, cut the wishes. I wish I could donate to this, or I wish I had an iPhone 29 or whatever is coming. Okay, so just deal with it in the right order.
Yeah, and those are, I think auditing yourself is often the toughest part, the biggest part of the elephant, if you will. When people do audit, what do you think are the things that show up the most where people don't realize what they're spending on that can be eliminated?
Well, so sometimes it's food and other items like that where you're going out to eat instead of eating in, and those types of expenses where you can just be more frugal and more responsible on the daily. But a bigger one are your subscriptions and your monthly autos. Yeah. A lot of people, a quarter of Americans, 25% of Americans have signed up for a service either from a free trial or some ongoing opportunity, and after 6 months they've stopped using it
and they forgot, and
it keeps on there, and that can be up to $1,000, $1,200 a year according to estimates. So that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of good advice, and folks, I hope you heed it, because we want you to prosper in the new year. Dewey Steffen, thanks so much. Always appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah. More Flashpoint right after this. Mayor Mike Duggan is making the rounds this week as he finishes up his third and final term as the leader of Detroit. He joined Rhonda Walker this week to reflect on some of the biggest moments and decisions in the last 12 years. And here's a little bit of that.
Take me into some of the negotiations, like something that you remember that was extremely challenging. I mean, nitty gritty. I don't know if this is going to work at all, and then the outcome.
There are so many of them, but every one of these deals was hard to pull off. When Mary Barra announced she was closing the Detroit Hamtramck plant, which was a shock. And I called, we were on the phone for a long time. Other people were attacking her and marching on her. I was saying, look, here's what Detroit has done for GM. Here's what I'm willing to do for you. Before you close anything, let's sit down. I spent a lot of time with Mary Barra and Mark Roy saying, okay, if we're going to convert to a different kind of a plant, trucks, not cars, potentially EVs, here's what we're going to need. And we worked it out. But this was true of everybody. I never sat down with anybody and said, give me charity. Now, the Pistons were probably the hardest. When Tom Goris bought the team, I sat down and said, come on downtown. And they said, we own the Palace. And they promptly put $30 million into renovating. And I said, I don't have any hope. Arn Tellem got put in charge of the team. I took him to dinner. I said the Detroit Pistons belong downtown. And he said, I agree with you, but the numbers have to work. And again, we had Chris Illich in the room, who was a terrific partner, together with Goris. And now you look at downtown Detroit, not just the basketball and hockey games, but every concert is now in downtown Detroit. You look at what that means to the city. Those kinds of, let's make this work for everybody. I think there's just a high degree of trust when you do business in Detroit. I'm not going to attack you. If the deal doesn't work out, I never say a word about you. But people are finding it a good place to do business.
And the thing is, once you start getting a few in, now everybody wants to come.
Oh, yeah.
How about that?
And almost every time they set a parts plant now, I get the first phone call. And there's times people have come in who said, I want to put in this parts plant. And I said, I got to knock down a building. It's going to take me 6 months. They said, we don't have that much time. I said, you know what? I can't help you. Move on to another site. And I find they appreciate that as much as the deals that we do make. They know that if I can't help, I'll be honest with them up front. And if I tell them I can help, they know the deal is as good as done.
What will be something that's coming up that you are really excited about?
I think what's going to happen on the Uniroyal site with Arn Tellem bringing the WNBA franchise there, but a facility for high school basketball and volleyball and outdoor soccer and flag football. But also, I was pleased this week to see the state Senate move on the transformational brownfield bill, which not only will help Sterling Heights and Muskegon, it will allow the Renaissance Center project go forward so we can save 3 of those towers. And Dan Gilbert's going to build out a Navy pier. That's going to happen over 4 or 5 years. But those kinds of things, Detroit, the Riverfront Conservancy's done a lot. They set out to build a river walk. We are way past that now. We are building the most spectacular riverfront in America. And over the next 5 years, there's going to be nothing to compare to it.
And of course, much more from the mayor next year when he focuses on his bid for governor. Our thanks to Rhonda for that, and to my other guests this week, Dewey Steffen and Attorney General Dana Nessel. That's Flashpoint, everybody. Enjoy your Sunday. Meet the Press coming up next. I'm Jason Colter. We'll see you later.